Hi friends, and welcome back to today's channel. Today I want to talk about poetry that feels alive. Not just poetry that ticks boxes, but poetry that moves you when you write it and hopefully makes the person that reads it feel something as well. Poetry for me is more than writing. It is a way of capturing life. So I want to share some reflections on my own writing and some practical tips for anyone who wants to be able to develop in their own practice. So my first tip would be starting with the raw mess. Poetry in its final form might look polished and beautiful and amazing, but so many pieces start off being messy, not being in a structure. And I think some of the best poems start like that. When I start writing my poetry, I literally dump it on a page as if I was journaling. It's very messy. No filter, no line breaks. I'm not even trying to be poetic. And then later on, I will go back and I will shape it. So I will notice words that stand out, any natural patterns that I've created, certain emotions that feel stronger, and then I'll build the poem around that. It's kind of like chiseling a sculpture. So you start off with your big block of ice and then you chip away and you carve it down. So I would say don't be afraid to let that first draft be really, really clumsy or ugly, because that in itself is where the truth comes out. Number 2 would be treat inspiration with urgency. Inspiration is something that I have had a rocky journey with. Sometimes I have loads of inspiration, other times I don't have any for months. And it really doesn't wait around for you. It's random, it's urgent. And with that, I make sure that the moment I feel any sort of inspiration or something starts speaking to me, I write it down with deep urgency. I will literally pull out my notes app or a notebook that I have and I will jot down any thoughts I'm having at that moment in time. And that is why my notes app is full of half-formed ideas and random words and phrases. Not everyone turns into a finished poem, but the ones I ignore most definitely always disappear. So I'd say when inspiration hits, respect it, treat it with urgency, and write down whether it's a sentence, a word, a phrase. If it feels powerful, write it down. My third key point would be not all of your poetry is for the world. We live in a time where everything feels like it has to be shared with everyone. We want to monetize everything, but that very much is not the case. Some poems that I write are only for me, and some I'll share with other people. Sometimes you write something that is so personal that it doesn't feel right to share with anyone, and that's perfectly fine. Poetry doesn't always have to be performed. It can be private, it can be a diary. And I think when the words are speaking to you and only you, in a way, that's when it can feel the most alive. And I think it's almost freeing when you write in a way that means you don't have to worry about what others are thinking. The fourth is treating poetry as a spiritual practice. So for me, writing poetry is a way that I can connect with God. I often write letters to God in the form of prayers. I found some of my favorite poetry books actually come from the Bible and the Book of the Psalms, and I find that really powerful. These are ancient poems that capture joy, despair, gratitude, and heartache. And when I write, I feel connected to that tradition. It's like I'm adding my voice to something much larger than me. And even if you're not religious, you can still treat poetry as a grounding practice. You can use it to connect to yourself. You can use it to connect to the things around you as well. It can be part of a quiet time or a reflection and a way of sort of listening very deeply. My fifth one would be to draw inspiration from everywhere. I find pieces come from literally anything. I love to write pieces based on paintings. That's one of my favorite things to write a poem about. I love to write pieces based on stories that I've heard from history. I wrote a poem based on a woman that I read about in a research paper at university. Inspiration is everywhere. You just kind of have to train your eyes to see it. Sometimes it sees you. Music is another really big source. There are so many free instrumentals you can find on YouTube and free beats. And sometimes I will just let the music guide me. I will listen to the song and I will hear the rhythm and I will let that speak to me and the words will flow from it. And when you sync your words to that beat, it creates something complex and alive in a different way. So I would recommend go out to a gallery, look at some paintings, some photographs, let the pieces speak to you. Imagine a story behind something and write about it. Another tip would be creating practices around your writing. So one thing I really love to do is I love to write underneath trees. One of my favorite trees to write underneath is a chestnut tree in my local park here and a willow tree at my local park up at university. Having a specific place that you write also adds a sense of weight to it. It feels like a tradition in itself, and it kind of warms my heart thinking that so many other people have probably sat underneath that tree and were able to find inspiration from that tree and probably did the same thing as me. And it feels full circle and wholesome in a way, that they could have been thinking of their own thoughts or even writing as well. So I would say a place or even a ritual, drinking a specific type of tea before you write. Something that makes writing feel special. Lighting a candle, playing a certain playlist, or writing at a certain time of day. It doesn't have to feel complicated, it just has to feel intentional. And my last tip would be, make it alive by making it yours. Because at the end of the day, what makes poetry alive, I personally think, is honesty. Not the perfect metaphor, not the perfect word choice, but making it yours and truly yours. If you write exactly what you feel and what you care about, that in itself is it being alive. Even if nobody ever reads it, you will read it and you will know that it is true. So yeah, I hope that resonated with you. I hope you go out and you write some alive poetry. And I would love to hear in the comments, what are some of your favorite writing rituals that you love to do? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.